So Fateless reached a new milestone today, releasing the full soundtrack for the Godforge game. But I believe it's more than just sounds that have been released to us. I think it actually gives us a direction of the story, and we're going to break it down today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to start off with, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I'm as stiff as a board, and not in the way that I would like to be. I'm an old man and I stretched too much this morning, and now my neck hurts and is stiff, which is why you can see what I've got a hot compress on now, and whilst I'm sort of sat bolt upright and not really moving. So we've brought the mic a little closer to us, and I want to apologise for that in advance. So I'm going to leave this playing in the background just whilst we talk over, and hopefully it's not too loud for you all. So the first song in the playlist is the Godforge Theme. Now this is the one that we have all heard before, and if I'm being honest, I don't think that it has an immediate impact with the lore in the game. So the next one we come to is the Fires of Creation, and this one's got quite bit more of like an ominous sort of tone to it. And what does Fires of Creation mean? Now I think this is possibly the aftermath of the cinematic trailer. So, you know, Ra's come down, he's blasted everything apart, we've chosen our starter hero. Now the Fires of Creation, so obviously Ra's decimated everything, and maybe this creation is less of like a physical thing, but more of like they've started a movement, that kind of thing, whether that's trying to overpower gods like Ra as our main character, or forging a new alliance, something like that. Now I could be obviously very wrong with this, but it doesn't really specify a location like some of these. And now this could quite easily be hell, it could refer to some sort of forge, perhaps the Godforge, the beginning of our legacy, creating something that we're going to embark on. But that's sort of where my head's at right now when it comes to this particular song. Next one we come to is the Field of Reeds, okay? Now, this one's quite cool. It sort of gives me sort of like a Middle Eastern market kind of vibe, with that sort of like a bazaar kind of thing in the background. Now I think also the image here is quite telling. Fields of reeds, you know, I kind of also think back to sort of the original Gladiator film in some way, but also we've got, you know, someone who is we perceive to be as Thor, fighting the Mayan god of the underworld, and I forget his name. I think it's Apwash. So this sort of shows me that perhaps this is some sort of combat step, fighting in the Field of Reeds with multiple gods clashing against each other, or other heroes of myth. Now I also think potentially this has something to do with the sort of two sides in the game. Order, chaos, but also the tarnished and untarnished. Those are a couple of words we have seen pop up now. Those two words have been mentioned in the game, and I don't think it's just coincidence. I think that plays a big role here, and perhaps plays a part in the battle scene, where the people have been mind controlled to fight others, and that's what tarnished is, and untarnished are the ones that have been purified. Something along those lines. But yeah, this is a really cool one, very battle sort of thematic, as I've said. Very much wants to make me get up, if I could, and go fight someone. So this one is called the Path to Duat. Now, for those of you that don't know, Duat is the Egyptian underworld, essentially. So again, I think the picture is quite telling. Now, it's quite abstract, but it sort of gives off the allure of like a void, maybe. Now, if you notice, it's the same sort of couple of pictures throughout, but I think maybe they've chosen them specifically. This perhaps we've come from the battlefield, many people have died or things like that, and we're now being escorted to the Egyptian underworld. And I also think this is where sort of the campaign comes in. We've seen a lot of the Aru campaign map. It was one of the first ones done, which makes me think perhaps this is the first part of our story. Whether we're fighting in the Fields of Reed sort of in Egypt or somewhere else, maybe like Eka, and then we come to the Egyptian world, the Egyptian mythological world. I think that is sort of, say, almost display this as a railroad for how the story is going to go, assuming that these are all in the right order, especially with the game. But Path to Duat, something that has obviously gone horribly wrong and has sent us down to the Egyptian underworld. Now, whether we are going to rescue a soul or something like that, I don't know. But yeah, I think this is perhaps a railroad for the campaign. So next we have the Halls of Aesir. Now, the Aesir are the pantheon of Norse gods. There were two pantheons that warred with each other, but then they eventually sort of signed a peace treaty and came together. Now, this is Asgard right here. So common names from the Aesir: Odin, Frigg, Thor, Tyr, Balder, big names like that. I think Loki and Heimdall might have been there too. But we've obviously come from the Egyptian underworld, from Duat, to sort of the big grand halls of Asgard, essentially, and we're seeing these Norse titans of legend here. So perhaps that might be the next stepping stone for the campaign. Now, we've not really seen much of the Asgard map. Initially, we've seen a lot of the Aru and the Izumo maps, but we did see the new campaign maps in a recent video from Fateless. Whether they were in any order, I don't know. Appears to me that perhaps we've gone from the Egyptian underworld to the heavenly realms of Aesir. How that happens and why we've done that, I don't know. Whether we're gone to rescue a friend from Duat. They've said no, Anubis has said no, unless you get the approval of, I don't know, like Odin. So perhaps we're then coming up to the Halls of Aesir to see what we can do to make that happen. Obviously, I have no idea whether that has anything to do with the storyline. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's the only sort of thing I can think of at the moment on why we would go up there. And I think in getting this favour from the Assyrian gods, we're going to have to do something, which leads into these next two. So next we have left the Halls of Aesir and we've come to Ivaldi's Hoard. Now, for those unfamiliar with Ivaldi, I know that the Sons of Ivaldi were a group of dwarves, okay, and they had made numerous weapons over the years. Things like Gungir, Odin's spear, Draupnir, his ring, Freya's ship, Mjolnir, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, more notably, one of the Sons of Ivaldi is Brokir. Now, Brokir, we know, is one of the dungeons, and I guess that it's going to be either gear farming or something to do with weapons, because it just fits thematically with these dwarven craftsmen. So I think perhaps, you know, whatever favour we sought from Duat, we had to visit the Halls of Aesir, and they have asked us to go to Ivaldi's Hoard. Now, whether this is to rescue a weapon that's potentially been stolen, like Gungir or Mjolnir. Fafnir is a boss in the game, and, you know, we know dragons like Smaug, they have huge hoards, so perhaps that plays a role into it. Perhaps, you know, Fafnir has taken these special weapons and we need to go and rescue them from Ivaldi's Hoard. That's at least sort of where my mind is at right now. I can't think of any other reason we'd need to go there, unless we get them to craft our first weapon. That's the other thing that I was thinking of. Loki made a bet with the Sons of Ivaldi that they couldn't beat the original weapons, and they then went and crafted Mjolnir and things like that, which turned out to be superior, kinda. So yeah, perhaps we are going there to either rescue some weapons or get some of our own crafted. So next, we've left Ivaldi's Hoard. And let's pretend for this instance we either couldn't find what we wanted or it's been broken. We're now off to Dvalins Foundry. Now, Dvalin, again, is still Norse, so heavy Asgard influence here. And Dvalin is one of the 4 stags of the World Tree. Not only that, though, he is also a dwarf, okay? And he crafted some incredible pieces. I think he gave Freya a necklace, but more importantly, he also crafted a sword named Tyrfing, something like that. And this sword was capable of deicide. Now, deicide, you know, the killing of gods and kings, that kind of thing. It's also cursed, I believe, that every time it was drawn, it would end up killing someone. Even, I believe, being drawn to wound Odin himself. And I think that's a key piece here. I think perhaps the gods are scared that this sword exists and is in the hands of the wrong people, so they sent us to Ivaldi's Hoard to find it, and then onwards to Dvalins Foundry to locate it. Or something else, to craft something of our own, something more powerful. Say very Asgard heavy, this part of the story, and certainly lots of things to think about. So next we're moving on to the song called The Amber Isle. Now, the Amber Isle could be a couple of things, but what I believe it to be is Avalon. So why do I say this? You've got this sort of folk music playing. I don't know if you can kind of hear it right now, but if you can't, go to 30 seconds. You've got the sort of like the pan flute, that recorder, that sort of Celtic vibe. And the Amber Isle also was known as Avalon, or it has at least a lot of relations to that. In fact, in modern day, they think that it is current Glastonbury is where Avalon was. There you go. There is some history for you. So, yeah, I think this path, say, we've left Egypt, we've gone through Asgard, perhaps fought in one of the first couple of dungeons, and we have now moved into Avalon. Speaking with King Arthur and some of the Celtic legends, perhaps fighting Gog Magog, who knows? But, you know, it's a clear movement now from the from Asgard to Avalon and the Amber Isle. I do love this kind of sort of folky vibe we got going on here. From there, we have Jewel Paradise. Now, Jewel Paradise is quite vague, I think. Or either that or I'm missing something, but hearing a lot of sort of drums, and it sort of gives me Indiana Jones vibes. So perhaps we've moved to Ameyakan here, like sort of the jungle, that kind of thing. Again, bit vague, and perhaps I'm clutching at straws here. But that's the sort of kind of vibe that I'm getting here. Either that, or perhaps we are moving out to the east, and perhaps this is like Eka, and I'm getting everything all wrong entirely. But yeah, that's my guess, is that we've left Asgard Avalon, and perhaps we're moving to Ameyakan here. We could easily still be in Avalon, but I think that we have perhaps moved a little bit when we come to this Jewel Paradise. The next song of the movement, Gates of Heaven, and I love the intro to this one. Now this is very much Far East vibes, and so this is either Chan, we've come to the Chinese Gates of Heaven, or perhaps the Izumo Gates of Heaven and meeting with Amaterasu. Now, the next couple are also to do with Shinto, so perhaps this is Izumo over Chan. It's definitely got that kind of vibe for me, especially that intro. Very, very cool song. Thoroughly enjoying this one. Again, why we've come here, what this has to do with the story, I sort of lose track at that point. But I think this brings us into a new part of the story. So we've gone to Amaterasu, or perhaps we've taken one step further. Perhaps we are meeting Izanagi. Now, if we're not meeting Izanagi directly here, perhaps we're seeking him. And let's say we can't find him in the Gates of Heaven, or he wants us to go do something. We then go to the Forest of Kami to locate him. Now, there is a specific reason that I'm mentioning Izanagi, and that is coming up to the second, or the song coming up in a minute. Now, the Forest of Kami was quite a heavenly place. I think Kami is another word for sort of like God or higher being in Shinto Japanese, that kind of thing. It's also interesting that the Forest of Kami was located in Izumo, and Izumo itself is steeped in history, with Susanoo slaying a Hydra-like creature there. But I'm going to move on. You know, perhaps say in one of these two we're searching Izanagi's help, and then he has asked us to return the favour by helping him get to the Yomi Gate. Now, the Yomi Gate, Yomi is the Shinto underworld, and famously this is where Izanami went to. She died. Izanagi went down to the underworld to bring her back. Upon getting down there, though, he broke a rule. He started a fire and saw that she had rotted and was no longer what she was. As a result, she summoned a load of Thunder Kami to chase Izanagi out of the Yomi. And perhaps this has something to do with that. She chased after him along with these Thunder Kami, and he sealed the gate. I can't remember, I think it's like eating an apple or a peach or something helped that. And so perhaps we've gone to reseal this gate from those Thunder Kami coming out, or other undead beings. Perhaps we've gone there to stop Izanami. Perhaps we've gone physically into the Yomi to kill Izanami and the other beings that are located inside. Again, got kind of like a battleish vibe going on here, so I don't think I'm too off the mark there. Certainly a cool one to speculate. In fact, I'm really glad that this is up to date for making a cool video on. I'm really enjoying the speculation on this one. So, Pinnacle of the 12, this one is. Now, I believe this is reference to Mount Olympus and the Olympians. The word 12 gods in the Olympians: Zeus, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Poseidon, all those ones. I think Pinnacle relates to like a big height, which is where I'm getting sort of this Mount Olympus from. So we're moving away from Izumo, saying into this sort of Olympus part of the story, or the Greek sort of theming. I can't think of any other pantheons with 12, which is why I've sort of come to this conclusion. We've done whatever we need to do for the Shinto faction move coming up here. After this, we come to Haven of Souls. So, providing we're sticking with the Olympian world, Haven of Souls would perhaps suggest we've gone down to the River Styx and into the underworld down there. Perhaps meeting Hades, perhaps meeting Cerberus, or the guy who helps you cross the River Styx. I forget his name now. Perhaps I'll pop it up on screen here whilst we're doing it. Perhaps this sort of age-old war of Zeus and Hades, or brotherly dueling, if we want to call it. I forget what domestic, that's the word, coming to play here. Perhaps it has something to do with Persephone being taken down there. We know Persephone is in the game. And Demeter. Perhaps it's something else. Again, just heaven and hell warring. The sort of age-old adage. Something like that. But whatever happens, it culminates in a couple of things. The first one being the Great Task. Now, even though it's a bit of an upbeat intro there, this is obviously where we have to make a massive decision in the game. that will affect the outcome now. It's probably not like an RPG where you get one of two choices. It's probably a set choice here. But I think it's very telling, sort of this great task, what, you know, we've come to sort of the end of the playlist, or towards the end, and that, as I say, whatever it is going to have a massive impact on the world that we are currently find ourselves in. And then the last one I think is even more telling, especially with something that we saw in, I think it was either Tuesday's vid or the video before. The Tyranny of Order. Now, tyranny you associate with lawlessness, a dictatorship, that kind of thing. Whereas the side of order you associate with good. But it brings me to something that we saw, say, in that Tuesday video, where we got our first look at Guan Yu and the starter heroes. So here we are. So the video was actually over a week ago, 10 days ago. And we had this when we saw Guan Yu. The hero has aligned himself to Order, the great architect, artisan of the cosmos, she who craves control, protector of what is. Now, the Tyranny of Order and this, you know, before I knew what I knew now, I speculated about perhaps Order was a person, a being. And the tyranny of that sort of has strengthened that theory in my head. I could be way off, though, don't get me wrong. But say it's a speculation video and I'm enjoying it. Or if it's not this being that is the tyranny and the evil of the world, when we first saw Gilgamesh smashing the vase and all that kind of stuff, I actually put out a video that perhaps us as the player are the bad guy, or end up being the bad guy. And, you know, a lot of people tell me how wrong I was and there's no way that that would happen. But if we are ending on the Tyranny of Order, and that is in fact the order of the songs and the story, I don't know, perhaps the good guys don't always stay good and the power goes to our head. At least that's my thinking right now, that whatever we do in the lore to overthrow evil or whatever, perhaps isn't the best thing for the world. And that is where I'm going to leave it today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Do listen to the playlist. It is very good and certainly got me hyped for Godforge. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and look after yourselves. Don't overstretch like I did. I'm so old. Work hard, but as always, play harder. And I'll see you in another one soon. Cheers.